It's time to play What's Wrong with My Car on this beautiful Jag. Let's get started. This is a very nice 1999 Jaguar XK8, and it is in very good shape. The customer was actually pulling into their driveway. Everything had been going fine prior. The engine stopped. He checked the codes and thinks maybe it's a fueling issue, but he didn't go any further. He did try to start it a few times and it sounded really off. Something was wrong. So we're going to play This Just In and see if you guys can figure out what could be wrong with this car. But before we go into that, at least let's take a quick look at it. So here's the front of this XK8, and you can see that it has a leaper and a growler. I'm not sure if it came with the leaper or not. Maybe that was the way it was in these earlier models. But there they are. It says 4 liter. This is the 4 liter V8. This has crystal clear headlamp lenses. Unlike most modern cars today, after 10 years, they're yellow, like very bad looking. There's a reason for that, because they didn't cheap out on plastic. Listen to this, guys. Real glass. As we go down the side, you can see it's a beautiful, what is that, Mrs. Wizard? Like a pine green or a...
No, that is seafoam all the way.
Seafoam green, huh? Well, this one is just an XK8 model. It's not an XKR or anything like that. The convertible top looks to be in fair shape. Unfortunately, it does not run. Let's take a look in the interior real quick.
There we are, ladies and gents. 106,000 miles, 335 miles. Oh, and there it went. But beautiful gauge cluster with lovely wood trim all the way around. And actually there's wood trim all the way across as well. This thing is beautiful. And I wish you could smell the interior. This just has that classic older Jag smell. Never need an air freshener in this car. Lots of buttons and buttons and more buttons. And this looks very familiar to me because I had an 01 XJR and it was in just this kind of condition. Got a nice little hidey hole here, which they've got a charger for their phone. Let's see if the cup holder works. Cup holder's doing a great job. Does always break, too much plastic in there. And we have a nice hidey hole, which they've got like a map and tape and fun stuff in there. As we look at our seats, you'll see that we have a lovely ivory leather, and they do feel quite comfortable, and they wrap around you just enough to give you a slight hug. As we look at our door, we'll see that there is the ivory and a light taupe color on top with a little bit of taupe carpet fabric on that front section as well. One thing that is very different from my XJR to this XK8 is legroom. Not much going on back here, but this is a convertible, and I guess it gives you some space to, store a few things, take some people around if they are very, very short, I guess, small children, but looks good. Looks like we have a little bit of staining on that convertible top up there, and I'm not seeing any holes in here, so I'm wondering if that is just some marking and residue from when it is in top-down mode. Got a lovely Jaguar imprinted into our steering wheel. Lovely controls on the sides as well, but the leather looks good. The wood looks good on that steering wheel as well. So everything on the inside is looking really good. I'm just really worried about why isn't this thing started? Let's go back out and check that engine bay.
So before we dive in and start testing things and looking at things, pretend like you are the technician or the shop owner. This just rolled in. It cranks but won't start, and you don't have a whole lot more data than that. You do read codes and see mass airflow sensor, some possible fuel issues. That's kind of what the customer was thinking. It's fuel related, maybe a fuel pump died, or it's kind of what they were hoping. So I'm going to list some options of what you think it is, and then we'll find out what it is. Is it 1, the timing chain is broken and completely thrown the whole engine out of whack? Is it number 2, a dead fuel pump? It's creating no pressure and it just won't start? Is it number 3, a bad crank sensor causing the computer not to turn on the fuel? Or is it number 4, a bad throttle body, which these are known to have throttle body issues. They have to be sent off and be rebuilt. Is that possibly why it won't start? I'll let you guys in the comments post what you think it is. You guys have made your choice, what you think it is. Now let's find out what it really is. After the customer dropped this off, they left, kind of told us, hey, you know, try to start it, see if it'll start, see what you find out. I'd like to know what's wrong with my car. So we grabbed the key, I had the guys crank it while I listen, and the noises that it made, and it ran really bad. It did run. I knew immediately in my mind, I said, stop, turn it off, we're done, we're not cranking it anymore. Because I could hear the compression while it's cranking. I've been doing this long enough, I can listen. Whether it's a 4-cylinder, a V6, a V8, it doesn't matter. It should be even. When you're cranking, you hear the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Each of those da sounds that I just made is a cylinder on the compression stroke, putting a load on the starter. You hear it. You physically hear it. So it's da-da-da-da-da-da. If all the cylinders have even compression, then every time you hear that noise from the starter, it will be the same on every cylinder. Da, 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 da. But here's the deal. When this one was cranking, it was it sounded really weird. When it did try to run, it was backfiring through the intake. And that's when I told the guys, I said, stop. We're not cranking this anymore. We're going to dive in. Something else is wrong. This is definitely not a fuel pump. So if you guess fuel pump, it's definitely a fuel pump is not going to cause these issues. We did test fuel pressure, has over 55 psi. It's definitely not a fuel pump. Also, with those noises we heard, I also know that it's not going to be a throttle body because it's not going to tell some cylinders to have the compression and others not to have compression. A throttle body has no control over that, so definitely not a throttle body. Before we dive into the last two options, let's go ahead and jump into the engine bay. And it is a bonnet, since it's an English car. No matter what country it's in, it's a bonnet. Here's our AJ 4.0 V8. You can see that the throttle body is right here, and it is typically something that can give trouble, but this one is not giving us any trouble. It wouldn't cause the issues that it's having. There's also no codes for the throttle body. It's also not a crank sensor because we are getting fuel pressure when we turn on the key. When we did try to crank it, we're not cranking it anymore, but also it did try to spark because it did try to run. So it will give it fuel, it will give it spark. The crank sensor is fine. After we deduced all of those items, I knew in the back of my mind it sounded like it had uneven compression. And most of you guys who are gearheads out there probably know these 4-liters have bad problems with timing chains. So I had Danielson remove the coils and inspect on the inside with a borescope camera. We really didn't see anything, any damning evidence. We did a compression test, and on that side of the engine over there, on the driver's side, it does great. That is the side of the engine that actually is running. But on the passenger side, on all 4 cylinders, we have 0 compression, not even 1 psi. We have nothing. That's very strange. You normally think a timing chain breaks or something, you're not going to have compression on any of the cylinders or anything. But here's the deal. Just like in this picture, these have 1 timing chain for each bank, and then it has 2 extra smaller timing chains to run from one cam to the other cam, from intake to exhaust. So it's like, okay, so we know we have good compression on this side. It would probably run if the other side did what this side is doing, but it's not. I told Danielson, let's remove the valve cover over there and see what are we looking at here. So I'll go ahead and remove that for you guys and we'll take a peek. I've got all the bolts loose here. Set that up here. Aha! Look at that, guys. So our main chain down to the crank is spinning the intake, but it's not transferring from the intake to the exhaust cam because it's physically broken. Look at that. It needs Viagra, guys. The main issue here is the little chain on the passenger side between the intake and the exhaust cam. It's not necessarily the tensioner broke or it got too sloppy. The actual chain is physically broken in half and let loose. Unfortunately, this is an interference engine. So that means when the customer had it die on him, things were moving inside the engine, but not the exhaust cam. And very likely could have hit the exhaust valves and bent them. So this is very unfortunate. It actually makes me very sad. It's such a nice car, and it could be extremely expensive to fix this issue. Danielson did put the borescope camera into all these cylinders to see if we could see witness marks where valves touch the pistons, or to see possibly if the valves are physically bent. But unfortunately, sometimes when valves hit pistons, it may be not enough to leave a dent or enough to physically see it being deformed, but yet it's still bent enough that they'll never seal again. I didn't go any further with this. I don't want to do a major teardown if the customer isn't even interested in fixing the timing chains. So I kind of presented everything to the customer. You know, it's going to be just to do the timing chains, because we're not just going to fix the one little broken chain. With the notorious problems that these engines have, only a fool would only fix just the one little chain. We're going to take it all apart, the whole front end, and do all timing chains, tensioners, guides, water pump, thermostat housing, which is brown brittle plastic. You guys know that's just waiting to burst. You got to have all that stuff apart anyways to pull the timing cover off and have clearance to take care of everything. Just to do the timing chains, thousands of dollars. It's possible that the valves are bent and the head is going to have to come off and have new valves put in. I don't know what kind of other damage it could be. It's such a huge risk. Now, I could do some further testing and take stuff apart and rip into it and do a leak down test and things of that nature. But like I mentioned, I don't need to run up this customer's diagnostic bill if it's very likely they may not even fix it at all, no matter the cost. So now we have enough data to say, well, here's where we're at. It might be just the timing chains and you'll be back on the road. It could be a cylinder head or valves or a rebuild. Very easily could get close to 10 grand. It's a very, very expensive job. Now, knowing that it's going to be so expensive to fix this, we got some things to talk about here. So as you can see, we had all these parts off of the engine just to do the testing. Spark plugs, coils, valve cover, a lot of things. So that's basically what you see on the car here. So there are people that they get to a point in life where they want to afford a fancy, nice car. And at one time, these were very expensive cars. What was yours, Mrs. Wizard? Your XJR was like $120,000 when it was new?
Yeah, it was right at $119,000.
So you were balling back then if you had a new Jag. It's very expensive. There's still that mentality, some people that buy these cars, they roll up and think, you know, kind of hoity-toity, I got this high-dollar car. They're not. There's the idea it's very high dollar, when the fact, older Jags, as you gearheads know, are low dollar.
We paid $5
for the XJR. Now let me show you some local sales ads for an XK8s. A lot of them have similar mileage that run perfectly fine with no issues. Here's a 98 for $8,750. Here's another 98 for $99.95. Here's an 02 for even less, $8,500. So a lot of people have these cars, and I've actually had a customer who lives locally looking to sell their car stop in and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling my XK8. What could I ask for it? And I said, maybe $10,000. And he laughed at me. He said, bro, that's a $25,000 car all day. I said, no, it's not. It was a week later, he came back to me after he did some searching and researching, and he was like, you're right. I can't believe how low value that these cars are. Why are they worth so little? It's because it costs so much to fix them. When you say, hey bro, let's buy this 98 Jag, and someone who does do-it-yourself cars, or even is a technician at a dealership or something, they're like, oh hell no, I do not want a Jag. Or an old BMW, or any other older European car, because they know you can easily exceed the value of the car just fixing it up. In this situation right here, let's say the valves are bent. We do find that information that they are in fact bent, which they very likely are. The cost to make this thing be back on the road again, you can go buy another XK8 for it that probably has the updates already done. It's very sad because, like I mentioned, when this was new, this was so expensive. It was a very flashy, and it's still a very beautiful car, but it does not have the value to warrant putting 6, 8, 10 grand into engine repairs. So the question could be asked, why don't you just throw a used engine car wizard and be done with it? Because they all have the timing chain problems. What if we put a used engine in 3 months, this happens again? The customer's going to be like, I thought we had this problem solved. So here's the deal. We could get a used engine and then add on top of that a timing service job all over again. It's just not worth it. It's just really not. Thousands on top of thousands of dollars. So I wanted to give you guys a chance when this came in to see if you could figure out what was wrong with it. And it's one of those instances where you hope it's something simple, a fuel pump, but literally in the blink of an eye, we go from a $500 estimate to thousands of dollars really fast.
Car Wizard, did you do something wrong? Are those sirens for you?
Maybe they found something in my Duramax truck. There was bullet holes in it after all.
But it wasn't the Maserati.
No, it wasn't the Maserati. It sounds like they're going away from here.
Oh, you must have been safe.
Whew. I also just purchased a car that you guys will see soon if you hit the subscribe button that probably could attract cops. That's coming soon. But back to the Jag. I hate this for the customer. It's a beautiful car. We've given all the information to the customer. They need to call us back. They said they'll make a decision what they want to do, and we'll go from there. It really sucks, but it's the name of the game. So glad you guys could follow along, and if you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use or that we have used to find out what's wrong with this Jag or fix the other cars in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut of anything you buy, and we really appreciate it. Make sure to check out Mrs. Wizard's Ways, also in the description. She's got some really cool videos coming out on that. She just sold a bunch of her artwork on eBay. It did really well, so there'll be another batch of that coming soon. Very excited for that. And also hit the subscribe button here because we have many more cool videos to come. Thanks for watching.